Welcome back to Inside the Game with CNHI Sports. I'm George Bremer of CNHI Sports Indiana, and we're going to get you up to date with all the news from around the country. Let's start with the NFL and check in for our weekly spot with Bill Burt of CNHI Sports Boston. Now we're joined by Bill Burt of CNHI Sports Boston. And Bill, one of the plays of the year happened Sunday in the NFL. Kyler Murray's incredible Hail Mary throw to DeAndre Hopkins, who caught the ball in triple coverage. One, I want to know what you thought of that play. And two, where do you place the Cardinals now in an NFC race that seems to be pretty wide open?
Interesting. So first the play, first the game. I got to give him credit because Kyler Murray has been under the radar. I can't say that. I mean, he's the first pick of the draft, but it's been a nice, slow process. It wasn't like he came. Like I will say, I'm more impressed with Justin Herbert's early part of his career than any of the rookies I've seen the last 5 years. That being said, Kyler Murray just has gotten better and better, and it's been slower, gradual. I got to give him credit. He's making plays. That's what the position is. And it's not about everyone throws 70%. Look, every quarterback out there is throwing the 5-yard dink pass. I mean, Tom Brady made a living out of it, but everyone's doing it. Everyone's got, as we've said, 35 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Everyone looks good statistically. And again, I saw, I think at one point Cam Newton was, 13 of 16 again, and the Patriots had 6 points or 7 points. So I throw away the stats. What I see out of Kyler Murray is a guy that's not afraid. I remember, this is a very good athlete. This guy played baseball. In fact, he played baseball down the Cape. And he can make plays with his feet, but in the end, why I think he's going to be great is he makes more plays with his arm. And those guys are scary. As long as he doesn't get hit and take the big hit and is out for 6 games, this is a scary kind of guy. And I got to give him all the credit in the world because he's doing it the right way. I got to give them credit, the staff there with the Cardinals, because that team now, I'm not, could they win the NFC? Absolutely could do it. It's usually a process, but they're moving a little quicker right now than I first thought. And I'm going to give Kyler Murray a lot of credit.
They absolutely have grabbed some headlines, turned some eyes. I think there's something going on in Arizona. It's been fun to watch. Mm-hmm. Something going on again now in Foxborough. A big win on Sunday night over the Ravens for the Patriots gives that team a pulse. How do you feel things are coming along for New England? And then what do we make of this AFC race? 6 teams are 6-3. Buffalo's 1 half game ahead of them at 7-3. They're off this week. It seems like there's going to be quite a finish to the AFC race this season.
Well, I think we're going to see a Patriots-Cardinals Super Bowl, right? I wrote a couple weeks ago, blow it up. Then after the Jet game, I said, well, maybe not blow it up, but the point being, this year is a wash. I'm not ready to say that anymore. And again, coming into the season, my thought was Patriots go for the 7th playoff spot. Realistically, maybe 6th, but 7th. And maybe steal a playoff win, maybe beat the 2nd seed. Probably not, but at least get to the playoffs. And then that sort of disappeared 3 weeks ago after a couple of bad losses, one to Denver, another to Buffalo. That was really disheartening, a game they could have won. So now all of a sudden I look at them just a little differently. And Cam Newton, 3 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions, horrific stats, but he's run for 9 touchdowns. First quarter leading quarterback in the NFL. I think he's tied for 5th overall in the league in touchdowns. The Patriots are scary with Belichick. They game plan, as we saw against Baltimore. A year ago, they were embarrassed by the same team, the same quarterback. The quarterback, I don't want to say he was bad, but he wasn't. He was a third of what he was a year ago. And I give Belichick and the defense a lot of credit for that. So the Patriots are players in a very good conference. We're talking the Indianapolis Colts. That was a big win. Tennessee sort of needed that game to sort of define itself. Now they go to this week. They got to win this week as well. They don't have an easy game. But the Colts showed me a lot. Frank Reich, he's moving up the ladder in terms of how we look at him as a head coach. Loved him as a coordinator. I give him as much credit what they did to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. But you got a quarterback who knows what he's doing. And there's something to be said for that. I know it. The way he flicks the ball is weird. He can't get out of his own way. I think if he ran around, he'd run into himself. But he's not afraid of the moment. And in this tough race, again, no one's talking Colts right now, but the Colts are an interesting team. The rest of it, I still say it's KC and Pittsburgh. That's my AFC championship. But I'm not sold on Pittsburgh being a great team. I think they're a good to very good team. Kansas City, the quarterback's got me won over, and I think the coaching is best.
Yeah, Kansas City's absolutely been on a different level for these people for a couple of years now with Mahomes and Reed and what they've got going there. Colts have been an interesting team. I think they've kind of gone as Philip Rivers has gone. You look at their 3 losses, he hasn't played well. You look at their 6 wins, he's been a big part of why they won those games. Frank Reich, I think, has done a terrific job playing to his strengths and limiting his weaknesses. But I'll tell you, I think from covering Rivers for the first time this year, what's most, I guess, disarming is just how good he is with the media. Fans see him on the field, and we all know, he likes to talk to the opposition. He's got a reputation that's well earned for being a bit of a hothead out there, a big competitor. But he's really a reporter's best friend. He's so open. Rarely gives you the sort of textbook, just sort of rote answers. The only thing that's been kind of sad about that is we haven't had that time to kind of just shoot the bull with him at his locker. Right. It's all been on Zoom, as you know, and so we're kind of jealous of the people out in California who had those years to kind of, I've heard stories of him taking reporters into his locker and calling up a play on his iPad and running them through it. And he's unlike any other player really that I've covered. So it's been fun. I think the Colts are definitely a team to watch. Thanks again to Bill. You can follow all of his New England Patriots coverage on Twitter at Burt Talks Sports. You can follow me and the Indianapolis Colts at GM Bremer. Now let's go look for a big week in the Big Ten with Kevin Brockway of CNHI Sports Indiana and Elton Hayes of CNHI Sports Pennsylvania. Now we welcome in Kevin Brockway of CNHI Sports Indiana and Elton Hayes of CNHI Sports Pennsylvania. And guys, a huge week in the Big Ten, essentially 2 semifinal games, 1 in each division. Wisconsin going up against a surprising unbeaten Northwestern team. Ohio State going up against a surprising unbeaten Indiana team. What do you make of these 2 matchups, and how important are they in the overall conference championship picture?
Yeah, well, Indiana, number 9 in the country now against number 3 Ohio State. The first top 10 matchup for the Hoosiers since the 1968 Rose Bowl. Number 4 Indiana versus number 1 USC, with a running back named O.J. Simpson ran a pair of touchdowns to lead the Trojans to the win out there in sunny Southern California. So a huge stakes game, obviously, for the Hoosiers. They are a 21-point underdog, which is a little bit of a surprise when you consider that they're 4-0 and they're coming off a shutout performance. But still some things to clean up for the Hoosiers. Not very effective in the red zone in that win against Michigan State, 3-7, after being 16 of 16 to start the season. But certainly a big showdown, too. And another really chance for Michael Penix, I think, as well, to really elevate his status going head-to-head against Justin Fields, who's one of the leading candidates for the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, all eyes will be in Columbus this weekend. This is a huge game. I know, Kevin, you'll be in town. You'll be there. Just you and your friends in the press box, since Ohio has, curbed, I guess, parent and staff attendance at these games. But 4-0 Indiana right now, it's got to be the story of the Big Ten. A great body of work so far. Like Kevin was saying, Michael Penix has been impressive. Ty Freifogel, very impressive. And Ohio State, I know they're the juggernaut in the conference. I know that they've kind of carried that torch by themselves for a while, but the defense this year is not what it has been in years past. And I think there's some vulnerabilities on that defense, especially on the defensive line. I know but Wyatt Davis is a stalwart on that line, but there are other players who just aren't living up to the the moniker that Ohio State has kind of, earned over the years as being just a defensive juggernaut team. And I think this year is the chance for, if Indiana's going to do it, this year presents probably the best chance in recent years to pull that win. But I still think 21-point underdog, that's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know where they're getting that from, but I think it'll definitely be a lot closer than that.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising spread on there. Vegas obviously not buying into the Hoosiers yet. What do we make of Wisconsin? We've only seen them play 2 games, 2 weeks apart, but the Badgers have looked pretty good in both of those contests. Graham Mertz obviously came on the scene with a huge opening game. Didn't need to carry as much of the load against Michigan on Saturday, but they get that running game going, looked like a typical Wisconsin team. We don't know a lot. There's not a lot of data on the Badgers, but is this a team that could potentially contend for a playoff spot?
Look. Yeah, don't forget that Ferguson has really helped at the tight end position too. I think he's really emerged as along with Freiermuth, one of the best tight ends in the Big Ten Conference. I think he's given him a nice boost. Offensive line play, obviously, tremendously tough, physical, typical Wisconsin team. But I think this game was also an indictment on Michigan too. 48-11, their worst deficit in the first half at the Big House since it opened in 1927. And I saw a lot of guys in the second half of that game that were kind of, jogging after tacklers, and they seem to have checked out the Wolverines this season. And it'll be an interesting offseason for Jim Harbaugh. He's got a big buyout, $10 million, but perhaps, maybe he even leaves willingly if an NFL team entices him.
Yeah, this game, the game last week was, I thought could go either two ways for Wisconsin. They had the 2-week COVID layoff. I was like, okay, maybe they'll be rusty, but they showed right away that maybe those 2 weeks helped them off with recovery efforts, because they looked like they did against Illinois back on the 24th. Wisconsin is just a well-oiled machine. Offensive line play is always solid. The running game is always solid. And now they actually have a quarterback who's, no offense to quarterbacks in Wisconsin's past, who's more than just a ball caddy, for lack of better words. Graham Mertz is really just taken the conference by storm. But I like what Northwestern has done. I'm a big fan of Pat Fitzgerald and what he's done with that program. But I think the Wisconsin, what did it say on Wisconsin? I think on Wisconsin keeps marching on Saturday.
I can't let you guys go without talking about Penn State a little bit. Winless, obviously, on the season. There's a lot of speculation about James Franklin. Obviously, his job's safe, but there's been for years now talk that maybe he's a candidate at USC. Maybe the Trojans would be interested. Maybe this gives them the window. Elton, you hearing anything about that? And what is the situation right now in Happy Valley?
I haven't heard anything about that right now. Someone made a joke that, well, maybe the USC that they're talking about is South Carolina now that Will Muschamp is gone. But fans are disappointed, and rightfully so. This is a team that began the season number 7 in the AP top 25, a team that went 11-2 last year. Ended the year in style in the Cotton Bowl. You lose a guy like Micah Parsons, who opted out. You lose a guy like Journey Brown, whose unfortunate medical condition has forced him to retire from playing. Those are tough losses to withstand, but it's still Penn State. One of the sticking points, it's linebacker. So who's really going to step up in and replace Parsons? Jesse Luketa has been serviceable. Brandon Smith has been serviceable. Ellis Brooks have been serviceable, but I thought they'd be playing a little bit better at this point of the season. And losing a guy like Journey Brown, and Noah Kane, that's another guy who they lost against Indiana with the season-ending injury. But one of Penn State's strengths this year was its deep running back room. Devin Ford looked a little bit better last week against Nebraska, but they really haven't made that push forward. One thing that's going to be interesting to see this week is who starts at quarterback. Will Levis came in the second quarter, replaced Sean Clifford after a fumble that was returned for a touchdown. We spoke with James Franklin yesterday. He said he hadn't made any decision on that. They still have some things to evaluate this week at practice, but the offense looked a little bit better when Levis was behind center. Clifford this year has been sporadic. One of his strong points last year was no turnovers. He has 7 or 8 right now through 4 games, which has definitely hurt Penn State's chances to win contests. So if I'm a betting man, I think Will Levis does get the start on Saturday against Iowa, and he's earned the right to see what he can do and see if he can maybe inject some life into this program.
And Kevin, before we go, I want to kind of get a little bit of a national picture here, but something from your old stomping grounds. In general, are we as a nation making enough of Kyle Trask right now? The Florida quarterback has one of the best stories, first of all, in the country, but through the however many games they played this year, 6 or 7, wherever they're at, he is not just on pace with Joe Burrow a year ago, he's ahead of him in some ways. How big of a story is this, and should we be talking more about Kyle Trask?
Yeah, he looked really impressive in that Arkansas game on Saturday. And, no Kyle Pitts, the tight end, who, was his favorite target up to that point. He's getting the ball to different receivers, Kadarius Toney, Justin Shorter, the former Penn State receiver, with a touchdown pass catch in that game as well. So I think Dan Mullen's offense, year 3, too, you've got to give him credit. I mean, they're certainly, playing at a high pace, but Trask is, he's an accurate passer. He gets the ball in good windows. He makes smart decisions. And, yeah, I would have to say I think it's going to come down to that SEC title game, provided, Florida wins out and gets there against Alabama. And don't forget, you've got Mac Jones at Alabama, too. I would think the winner of that game and what quarterback performs better is going to be up there. But I wouldn't necessarily count Trevor Lawrence out yet, coming back from COVID. I wouldn't count out Justin Fields either. I think there's still a little bit of football play, but I would say those 4 would probably be, your leading candidates.
Kevin, can I say something?
Yeah,
I know you're, the Gator Nation is happy with Kyle Trask, and I am as well, but he will not surpass Danny Werfel as being my favorite college quarterback.
A lot of people like Tebow too, don't forget.
Yeah. 2 preachers' kids, by the way.
Done well with that down there with the Gators. Guys, I know it's a huge week coming up with the Big Ten. I'll let you both get back to work. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you again next week.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks again to Elton and Kevin. You can follow Elton and the Penn State Beat at EHDC12. You can follow Kevin and the Indiana Hoosiers at Kevin Brockway G1. Now let's get a national perspective and check in with Clay Horning. Now, we are now joined by Clay Horning of CNHI Sports Oklahoma. And Clay, the NBA's at the business of building super teams again. Milwaukee comes out very aggressively right at the start of free agency here. I know you have some thoughts on this.
I'm sure it'll just go great. I mean, I'm sure every previous incarnation of a move like this has gone wonderfully well. In fact, it's just the opposite. Why I say that. So, I'll try not to talk for the next 10 minutes, but yes, Milwaukee has traded so pretty player. He started on a team that won more games than anybody else in the NBA last year. And who was the other guy? I just said his name, George Hill, also going. But as to their future, 3 first-round draft picks. So it's very similar to the deal that sent Paul George from Oklahoma City to the Clippers for 5 first-round draft picks and Danilo Gallinari, by the way. We all forget that. And it's just a measure of the craziness of what's going on. And I don't know, like they said that LeBron James was the GM in Cleveland before he left Cleveland and that he acts like the GM in Los Angeles also. And so I don't know to what extent. I mean, I think Kawhi Leonard really did engineer, I'll come to you guys, LA Clippers, if you'll go get Paul George, do whatever it takes. And they did whatever it takes, 5 first-round draft picks in Gallinari. And whether Giannis in Milwaukee, try not to attempt his last name, but whether Giannis gave marching orders or whether they said, here's what we want to do. And he said, sounds good to me. The point is he's entering the final year of his contract and they want to keep him for a super max deal that is you can only get if you re-sign with the team you're on. And they think they need Jrue Holiday from the Pelicans. So they traded a starter and what was basically their 7th man and 3 first-round draft picks. And by the way, those first-round picks, 2 of them are unprotected. The last one in 2027. Whatever they're cooking up in Milwaukee will have already played itself out by 2027 and probably by 2025 as well, which is when the other unprotected pick is for. So it's just crazy. And would you like to ask me another question?
Well, along those same lines, I think Holiday's only got 2 years of control, and I believe the second year is an option that's his, a player option. So they may give all this up for 1 year or two at the max of Drew Holiday, just to add to some of that craziness. But Oklahoma City caught up in all this again. Another big star on the move. Chris Paul traded to the Phoenix Suns. What's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, it'll make me watch the Suns next year. I mean, that's the impact Chris Paul had on the Thunder. We're not supposed to root for anybody, but I mean, that guy is a pro's pro, and I'm looking very forward to seeing that. But let me use that as a say. And by the way, I heard some ESPN talking head talking about how I think this puts them in the running for maybe the 5th seed. I don't see why Phoenix couldn't be a better team next year than Oklahoma City was last year, and Oklahoma City tied Houston for the 4th seed. But let me use the Chris Paul segue into, okay, more absurdity in the NBA. Chris Paul, you might recall, was traded to Oklahoma City for Russell Westbrook and 2 first-round picks and 2 first-round swaps should the Thunder choose to swap. All of a sudden, about a week ago, we hear Russell Westbrook wants out of Houston. And then, just wonderfully, 2 days later, we hear that James Harden might want to go be a Brooklyn Net along with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And by the way, that would lock up about $100 million in 3 players. And so we can return to Chris Paul in a second, maybe, but it's just there is this thing where now it seems like the players are calling the shots. But if the players really want to build a great team around themselves, before I came on, you were talking the NFL, little Tom Brady, his name came up, and I think I recalled that there were times Tom Brady took less money so the Patriots could build a team around him. So what's happening is you're getting 2 superstars together. They think we can go take on the world. But then you're just filling out your roster with quote role players. But a good role player is playing for beyond the league minimum, and that's basically what you're paying the rest of your roster. So it's insane, it's crazy, and somewhere in this craziness will end, and we will see a star that really wants to win a title, that doesn't need the cachet of having a max deal to do it. And any number of these way are making about the same money or more off the court. Not all of them, not Drew Holiday, but I mean LeBron certainly, Durant probably, Irving maybe. So it's just, do you want to? Anyway, I think through the back end what's going on in the NBA is there's sort of a come to Jesus moment for what have we been doing? Why am I even a GM if I'm going to let my player call the shots?
No, there's no doubt about that. Can't let you go without asking about Bedlam. Huge game out in your part of the country on Saturday, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State.
Well, I happen to think, and I wouldn't have written it if I didn't believe it, and I wrote it yesterday, and it's in today's paper, that Oklahoma State is just vastly overrated. I mean, they haven't given up a whole lot of points, but in a sense, they've looked their most dangerous in their only loss, which was to Texas, because 3 turnovers had a big role in them losing that game. They scored 31 points despite the 3 turnovers. But other than those 31 points, the only team they've scored more than that against is Kansas. They had to come back to win, I believe it was 2018 last week against Kansas State. Chuba Hubbard, arguably at one time best running back in the nation. Oklahoma State, he averaged 6.3 yards per carry last season. He's averaging 4.6 this season, which is probably not him. It's probably on his offensive line. So Oklahoma State is a team that is, I guess, going as far as its defense can take it. But it got to number 6 in the polls, I think, because it just happened to keep winning at a time where this crazy college football season found real blue bloods like Oklahoma losing. But we're back. The gravitational pull is, righted itself since. Oklahoma's playing like a fantastic team. Oklahoma State is 5-1, but I just don't think they're that good. And I have to share with you a great line I had in my column. This is really self-serving, but Spencer Rattler is OU's quarterback. Spencer Sanders is OSU's quarterback. And then comparing the teams, sure, Spencer Rattler is the best quarterback in the nation or the conference, but he's certainly the best quarterback in the conference who answers to Spencer. So anyway, I see OU's advantage everywhere, and nobody's played better defense than OU the past 3 weeks or the past 4 weeks, 3 games, whatever it's been. I see OU. I mean, they could win by 3 touchdowns. I could be wrong. I could be stunned. OSU was stunned OSU before. But as far as I can tell, and this was my column yesterday, OSU's secret weapon is just not very good. And if OU comes on the field believing that, that's where they could get in trouble, because I think OU's the much better team.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot for your time. I know there's a lot of NBA news to come here as they race towards their December start. I'm sure we'll catch up with you again next week.
All right. Thanks, man. See you.
Thanks again to our national sports columnist. You can follow him on Twitter @Clay Horning. And thanks again for joining us. We'll go inside the game again with you right here next week.